Good morning. KJ7T is in the booth. This edition of the Random Wire podcast, called Random Wire Reflections, talks about the content coming up in issue 100 of the Random Wire Review, publishing this Friday, July 26th at 7 a.m. Pacific. First, though, I need to share that issue 100 marks a milestone for the Random Wire Review. 100 issues. That simply amazes me. I also note another milestone, and that is the number of people who subscribe to the Random Wire just moved past 1,000 people this week. I am humbled that so many people are interested enough to subscribe. I'm thankful and grateful to you for sharing this journey with me. I also admit I feel a bit of pressure to continue to improve my content and style, but that's a pretty good feeling. Thank you for subscribing and for letting me know when something is or is not interesting. Sincerely yours, Tom KJ7T. So what is coming up in issue 100? Item 1 is a larger piece. Why not a mini PC instead of a Raspberry Pi 5? The context is building an all-Starlink node, and I provide some additional information on power consumption and performance comparisons. Number 2 is call the POTA guys, as in who is really prepared for emergency operations. Number 3 is a wish list item. I wish that there was a speech-to-text capability built into Asterisk. Number 4 is following up on Digipeater on the cheap. Number 5 is miscellaneous items about radio, including flying a repeater with a balloon, a new outdoor Meshtastic node, a new Meshtastic node from Rockland Tech, Amazon Sidewalk Network, Skywarn Plus on a virtual node. How about some amateur radio research? I heard neighbors on the Alaska Morning Net. Item 6 is other, i.e. not radio. Who remembers the rotary engine? Solid-state batteries are here. Audacity 3.6.0 is released. AI on your own computer. I thought I had the best software. The Yellowstone supervolcano, podcast promoters, and new jet fighters for the Portland National Guard. Number 7 is closing notes and a 73 from me. Item 1. Why not a mini PC instead of a Raspberry Pi 5? I've been wondering, why not use a mini PC instead of a Raspberry Pi 5 for an all-Starlink node? I know I could do this by replacing the operating system on the mini PC with Debian and loading up ASL on the device, but what I'm really angling toward is running a virtual machine on a mini PC with ASL installed to the virtual machine. First, let's compare the two hardware platforms. I note that a B-Link brand mini PC on Amazon specs out better than a Cana kit Raspberry Pi 5 kit at close to the same price. The N100 CPU in the mini PC is faster than the Raspberry Pi 5, and the mini PC has more RAM and more storage. The N100 has 4 cores running at 100 MHz, but that speed can increase to 3.4 GHz based on demand. Similarly, the Raspberry Pi 5 has 4 cores, but they run at 2.4 GHz. Let's talk about power consumption. In issue 100, I also dive a bit into power consumption of the mini PC and the Raspberry Pi 5. A few links are included in issue 100 if you want more information. Bottom line though, the mini PC consumes more power, which does not come as a surprise. If you want to dive a bit deeper, I include a link to a comparison of the two platforms and a link to a good YouTube evaluation. I think the 5 reasons you might want to use a Raspberry Pi 5 are: 1. You need access to what the GPIO pins offer. You don't have that kind of flexibility with the mini PC. 2. You want to use an MMDVM hat, where MMDVM stands for Multi-Mode Digital Voice Modem, as your radio interface. If you want an RF-based node that uses an MMDVM hat, the mini PC is not the right choice. Number 3, you need the lowest power consumption. The Raspberry Pi 5, or for that matter an old Dell Wise 3040 thin client, is going to consume much less juice than the mini PC. 4, when a single-purpose machine meets your needs. And 5, when you need the least expensive machine. If you don't need those things, or rather, if you need a wider range of capabilities, it's hard to argue against the mini PC. Here's my example project. To build an all-Starlink node, I could go with a Raspberry Pi 5 and ASL3. That would get me the new control console as part of the ASL3 installation. Or I could buy the Beelink mini PC for a few dollars less than a CanaKit package and get twice as much memory, an M2 slot on the motherboard, and 500 gigabytes of solid-state drive storage. If I replaced the supplied Windows 11 Pro operating system with Debian 12, I'd have a machine that would likely outperform the Pi. But I don't want to replace the operating system. What I'd like to do is virtualize an all-Starlink node on the Beelink, thus giving me a Windows machine that can be used for other things, not just as an ASL node. Having a backup computer that also runs ASL3 could be very handy indeed. My proof of concept for this is my node 588411, which has been running 24/7 for several weeks in a virtual machine on my home server. That node runs as a hub, i.e. it has no radio. I use my SIP phone to connect to it. The audio is clean. Issue 100 includes a 2-minute recording of all Starlink audio as heard over the speakerphone in my Cisco SPA 525G phone. Where this idea falls apart is if you want an MMDVM hat so you can use a handheld radio to connect to your node. I do wonder if a CM108 fob in the Beelink would function with a virtualized node. In fact, I wonder if the hotspot radio-USB device would work with a virtualized node, or perhaps one of the ANR kits by David NR9V. I'm certain the ANR devices would work with the Beelink if the operating system on Beelink was replaced with Debian 12. After all, my desktop node 588412 runs on a Dell Wise 3040 running Debian 10. Seems like I could test this pretty easily. Similarly, I do have a hotspot radio-USB device that I could use for testing. But what did I really do? I bought the Beelink mini PC running Windows 11. For my test, I installed VirtualBox on it. To do that meant I also had to install Python and some dependencies on the mini PC. Then I exported a copy of my 588411 node virtual machine, copied it to the mini PC, and imported it into VirtualBox. When I ran the node on the mini PC, it worked fine, except for having to change the network settings to match the network hardware on the mini PC. Allmon 3 works on the mini PC, as does Allscan. So did it work? Well, I'm still working on the virtual node on the mini PC. In the meantime, I imported a copy of my virtual machine to my laptop. And this is where virtualization becomes a powerful tool because it means I don't have to buy more hardware to operate more machines. It also means that my node is now set up and ready to go with me when I travel. I'm looking forward to trying this, particularly with the hotspot radio-USB device. The next item is Call the POTA Guys. Recently, I caught part of a net in Texas, with a lesser number of participants from other parts of the country. Most of the fellows were ex-military. The part that made me sit up and take notice is when they were describing amateur radio operators as useless in an emergency. In their military deployments, they had never worked with ham radio people, and from that, they concluded that there really wasn't a place for hams in emergency response situations. That is so different from my experience. In Washington and Oregon, the two states where I've done most of my radio operating, amateur radio is a key part of emergency response plans. Many clubs drill for such situations. Many counties have close links to groups of amateurs in case those skills are needed. I suppose one aspect of this reflects how local authorities view amateur radio. Maybe they don't know or have forgotten some of the lessons from Katrina. I include some links to evaluations of experiences from Katrina. One of their complaints was about the kind of radio operator who had an overblown sense of his or her own importance. They spoke of, quote-unquote, people in yellow vests. showing up at the scene of accidents or emergencies and then trying to direct others. I have seen that before. I get it. However, those folks seem to be the exception, not the rule. I don't think people in yellow vests adequately describes the approximately 750,000 licensed amateurs in the United States. It's rather ironic that as I was recording this section about emergency service, a fire engine went by in the background. It's very hot. It's smoky. It's going to get smokier here today in Portland, Oregon. And so I'm up early in the morning to record this before I get hoarse from breathing smoky air. One thing they said had some real meat to it, though. In an emergency, one of them said, "Call the POTA guys." Parks on the air operators have portable stations that are ready to deploy. Those operators are used to taking their stations to another location, setting up, and getting on the air quickly. This is one of the things about POTA we rarely talk about. We know we perform in a stressful situation to the level we've practiced. POTA operators practice all the time. If you were on the fence about POTA, you might consider how it helps you keep your station and your skills sharp and ready to go if needed in an emergency. I have a wish list item, and that is a speech-to-text utility for Asterisk. I think a useful adjunct for all Starlink would be a speech-to-text service for Asterisk. There's at least one project published for this, but it is designed for slightly older versions of Asterisk, not the very recent version included in ASL 3. This package contains an example Node.js program that uses the Asterisk External Application Protocol, or AEAP, to facilitate external speech-to-text translation in Asterisk 18.12.0 and 19.4.0. Since I'm not finding an appropriate package for Asterisk 20 that is used in ASL 3, I tried using Otter.ai on my smartphone to convert speech to text. The results aren't entirely useless, but they also aren't very accurate. In fact, the output can be rather humorous at times. Following up on the Digipeater on the Cheap item from a previous issue, I mentioned my interest in setting up a Digipeater at home in issue 98. The PLX Digi-APRS Digipeater looks very interesting, especially for less than $70. The PLX Digi does not include an Ethernet port, so it's intended to Digi RF signals. This might make a really nice little fill-in APRS Digi. The WX3 devices do include an Ethernet port, so they would work for iGating traffic. There is the WX 3-in-1 Mini and the WX 3-in-1 Plus 2.0. The differences between those two units include the Mini is plastic, the Plus is metal, 100-gram weight for the Mini, 270 grams for the Plus, 256 kilobytes of flash memory in the Mini and 512 kilobytes in the Plus, one RS-232 port in the Mini and two in the Plus. There's no thermometer port in the Mini. There is one in the Plus. APRS packet rates are more limited in the Mini, and there's no APRS-IS Mini server in the Mini, but it is present in the Plus. Based on all of the above, an RF-only fill-in Digi could be made with the PLX Digi. Otherwise, the WX 3-in-1 Plus 2.0 sounds like the way to go. And now I have a bunch of random items I have labeled as miscellaneous radio. Flying a repeater with a balloon. I've wondered how hard it would be to send up a small, battery-powered repeater, or perhaps a Meshtastic node, on a weather balloon. It can be done. It has been done. It appears that it really wouldn't be too hard. I include some links to other documents and websites, and this quote from a Reddit user. Years ago, we used a Kenwood dual-band ham HT in crossband mode wrapped in a towel, rubber banded to a Navistar 40 RC plane. Flew it up to 400 feet and flew figure eights for 45 minutes. It worked great until we ran out of gas. The UK High Altitude Society has a great link to launch your thinking on high-altitude radio play called A Beginner's Guide to High Altitude Ballooning. Seems like this kind of thing would make for a great collaborative project between an amateur radio club and a high school class. Also, check out a website called Steely-Eyed Balloon Men. Their most recent article covers a high-altitude launch with APRS, a crossband repeater, and a camera on July 7th, 2024. I have a new outdoor Meshtastic node. But here's the update. It's broken, and I'm waiting for a reply from the vendor. So while I had several paragraphs to discuss about this, I'm going to save that. I don't want to identify the vendor until we make this right. But I'm pretty excited about it because it uses a rack wise block. So let me skip on to the other new Meshtastic node that's coming to me from Rockland Tech. I did it again. I ordered up another Meshtastic node, and I'm excited about this one as it checks off a bunch of boxes for me. Is it a rack device? Check. Got GPS? Check. Pocketable? Check. Got a bigger battery? Check. It's a rack wireless WizMesh pocket all-in-one Meshtastic handheld. It's at 915 megahertz with a LoRa antenna and GPS, and I've pre-ordered that from Rockland Tech. The short name for it is just the WizMesh Pocket Node. This device should consume less power than most of my Meshtastic nodes, and it has a larger battery than some. It's compact. It has an acceleration sensor, so you can set the display to go off after a few seconds, and it will come back on as soon as you move the device. Displays consume a lot of power, so that feature alone will save some juice. It has an external physical switch to turn the unit on and off. It's not here yet. When it arrives, I'll be sure to take some photos for you. And what is the Amazon Sidewalk Network? File this one under, did you know that LoRa radio is also being used by Amazon? Let me start with a description of Amazon Sidewalk. Amazon Sidewalk is a shared network that helps devices like Amazon Echo devices, Ring security cams, outdoor lights, motion sensors, and tile trackers work better at home and beyond the front door. When enabled, Sidewalk can unlock unique benefits for your device, support other Sidewalk devices in your community, and even locate pets or lost items. Well, I also note that like Meshtastic, Amazon Sidewalk uses LoRa radio. And I quote, "The Sidewalk network is designed as a long-range shared community network. It works over 3 existing wireless radio technologies: Bluetooth Low Energy for short distances, LoRa for long range, and frequency shift keying using 900 megahertz. You know, that's pretty interesting, especially in an Internet of Things context, including trackers of people, pets, and things. Where might this go? Well, who knows, but maybe only Amazon has sufficiently widely adopted hardware to make something like this work. Personally, I'm intrigued by the potential for some kind of intersection of Meshtastic and Sidewalk via LoRa radio. I followed the steps I found on GitHub to install and configure Skywarn Plus on my ASL3 node running in a virtual machine, that's node 588411. It didn't work for me. Testing generated no audio, and I saw nothing reaching the asterisk CLI. We also received a heat warning today that my Amazon Echo devices relayed to me, but node 588411 did not announce it. I did not find instructions on uninstalling Skywarn Plus, so today I've reverted my settings. Specifically, I rolled back all of my rpt.conf settings, removed the cron tab entry, renamed the config.yaml or YAML file, and rebooted. The node's operating just fine, as it was before I tried to get Skywarn Plus working. I'd like to try this again at some point when I have more time to figure out why I couldn't get it to work. How about some amateur radio research? In issue 100, you will find interesting content at the following links, which I list alphabetically, not in any order of importance. AMRAD, the Amateur Radio Research and Development Corporation. AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Corporation. ARDC, Amateur Radio Digital Communications. RHAB, Amateur Radio High Altitude Ballooning. And HAMSci for Ham Science. I heard some neighbors on the Alaska Morning Net. I was listening in during the Alaska Morning Net on All Starlink node 29332 on July 19th and heard several people from around my region, some near, some far. Dave, KJ7T, served well as the fill-in net control, keeping the conversation going. He is a near neighbor, just a few miles north of me in Portland, Oregon. I have some other, i.e. not radio, items. Do you remember the rotary engine? This note is for those of us who are fascinated by mechanical things. An article reminded me of the old Rotax rotary engine, but this particular evolution of the rotary idea seems like it might actually work well. It marries a single piston to a planetary gear. This is very interesting in a mechanical sense. The article is titled, "This Super Small Rotary Combustion Engine Could Power Your Next Motorcycle," and I have linked that in issue 100. Let's talk about solid-state batteries. This topic is very interesting to me. First, though, what is a solid-state battery? Wikipedia says, a solid-state battery is an electrical battery that uses a solid electrolyte for ionic conductions between the electrodes, instead of the liquid or gel polymer electrolytes found in conventional batteries. Compared to lithium-ion batteries, solid-state batteries are expected to be lighter, safer, and last longer. This is really good news if you do POTA or SOTA. It's also good news if you use a laptop computer, carry a smartphone, or use an e-bike, as less weight and more safety will benefit a wide range of consumers. The safety aspect is particularly meaningful to me when you consider how a thermal runaway condition in a lithium-ion battery can have devastating outcomes. Lithium-ion battery fires are a growing public safety concern. Lithium-ion batteries are found everywhere. I know what you're thinking. Oh great, another way for manufacturers and vendors to dig into my wallet again. That is undoubtedly true. In this case, though, I think the benefits will be worth it. I've had a few incidents with lithium-ion batteries in smartphones. In one, the swelling battery broke the phone back. In another, the battery started to overheat. In that case, I was able to pry off the back, remove the battery, and secure it in an airtight, fireproof container. There's a good article on Jalopnik about a new power station built around a solid-state battery pack. So this is real. You can buy a solid-state power station right now. The Jalopnik article includes a helpful video, but if you take that dive, expect to also hear a pitch about the sponsor, Ground News. This is linked in issue 100. And Audacity 3.6.0 is released. Recent changes to Audacity are described in the changelog. I have to say I continue to be amazed at this free sound editing tool. As my skill in using it grows, I'm able to produce good quality audio files. I think the limitation in Audacity is me, the user, not the software. What a great tool is Audacity. How about AI on your own computer? If you wanted to experiment with artificial intelligence, there's a project available on GitHub that looks kind of interesting. It's called GraphRag, a new tool for complex data discovery, now on GitHub. GraphRag uses a large language model, or LLM, to automate the extraction of a rich knowledge graph from any collection of text documents. Under the title of "I Thought I Had the Best Software," how about a browser that minimizes memory use, a Search Everywhere app, Microsoft Power Toys, and 7-Zip? These are explained in an article titled 7 Apps That Every Windows PC Should Have and Why. I use Power Toys and 7-Zip. I'm going to add Lightshot to my technology stack. And now for something very much not radio, the Yellowstone supervolcano. I include a link to a very interesting article about the Yellowstone supervolcano. At least it's interesting to me with my geology background. I think most of us don't realize how tremendously huge the Yellowstone system really is. The title is, "The Yellowstone Supervolcano Destroyed an Ecosystem but Saved It for Us." Back in 2020, an article was published in Geology that identified 2 super eruptions from the Yellowstone hotspot. This information was recast by several media sources to be less technical for most folks. If this kind of information is interesting to you, you might enjoy a video by Nick Zentner of Central Washington University. Nick has a very different and engaging style. Yes, I know this isn't radio, but it is about disasters, and maybe that broadly intersects with amateur radio. If you watch the YouTube, the Yellowstone segment doesn't start until 17 minutes 25 seconds into the video. There's a link to it in issue 100. The Yellowstone hotspot has special meaning for me because I worked in a gold deposit north of Elko, Nevada that was probably formed as the North American plate slowly moved over the Yellowstone hotspot. To get a bit more, you can read the abstract titled, "Is the Ancestral Yellowstone Hotspot Responsible for the Tertiary Carlin Mineralization in the Great Basin of Nevada?" Or you can download a PDF from the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology titled Eocene Magmatism, the Heat Source for Carlin-Type Gold Deposits of Northern Nevada. This is all very interesting to me because when I worked in that area, we had no idea that the Yellowstone hotspot might be related to the gold mineralization that we were seeing and that were supporting active mines. So this is, in a geological sense, this is late-breaking news and very exciting. And then I got an email from a podcast promoter. Color me surprised to be receiving promotions from entities purporting to help push my podcast to millions of people. Sorry, no. That's not my plan. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to enjoy this journey. I'm not going to try to push people into experiencing something they really don't want. So to all those promoters, you will not be getting a reply from me. And finally, new fighters for the Portland National Guard. The Portland National Guard just got some new F-15EX Eagle II fighters. The 142nd Wing in Portland defends the skies over the entire Pacific Northwest. I heard one of them fly overhead on July 19th and called up my ADS-B exchange system only to discover it was not reporting its position. It was low and fast and stealthy. That's a bit of a surprise considering how many aircraft were in the air at the same time over and near Portland. I include a screenshot from the ADS-B exchange system so you can see what I mean. I guess my childhood fascination with jet fighters will never go away. In my closing notes, I received some feedback on the audio clip I've been using in the Random Wire Reflections podcast to separate topics. The audio bothered a few people, so starting with this Reflections podcast, I'm using Morse code clips. I also have a new Shure microphone coming that I'll try for podcast recording. Even if it doesn't work as well as I'd like, it's sure pretty to look at. I did have a piece prepared for issue 100 on sources of RF in the home, but as the content for issue 100 continued to grow and grow, I decided I'll save the RF article for a future Random Wire review. And with that, I want to say thank you again. 100 issues of the Random Wire, 1,000 subscribers. I am humbled and amazed. 73 to all. I hope you have a great week, and you can catch the written Random Wire review issue 100 on Friday, July 26th. This is KJ7T, and I'm clear.